Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong. Lakes like mirrors, reflecting pride, from the Rockies to the ocean tide. Voices mingle in a tapestry, a world united in harmony. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong.
Well, everyone, welcome back. We've got a fun and entertaining live Q&A for you today. Lots to talk about, you guys. One of the things, I think I was up fairly late last night, making my way back from Toronto from a conference that I had. I rolled into my house about 4 a.m. But it was a good roll in because we got a good result last night, and our dear Blue Jays are tied up 2-2. And I was speaking at the Canadian Immigration Lawyer Association conference on express entry, and one of the head policy government official, I'm trying to remember his name now, Jonathan, can't remember his last name. Anyways, head express entry policy guy was there, and he shared a lot of really great insight on where the government is headed. And we know, Alicia, that within a very short period of time here, hopefully it's going to be before Friday, but I think our Halloween on Friday may very well be the results of the annual levels plans, which, let's get the right one right here. So this here is what we're looking at, and we've talked about this a lot, Alicia, but these numbers are going to change, aren't they? So we know that the government is going to make some changes to this. We're going to have one that will be 26 to 27 to 28. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll see. There's some speculation, of course, about what is going to happen with the levels plan. It seems like things are probably going to stay on course in terms of overall net zero.
There we go. Yeah.
Net zero in terms of population growth, and actually a little bit of a population decline because of what they're projecting for the levels plan. So presumably that's going to stay on course. They have to announce this plan before November 1st, which is Saturday. So probably they'll do it on a business day. I don't know. Maybe they'll send it out on the weekend, but we'll have to see. But yeah, hopefully economic immigration express entry will remain the same or slightly higher, depending on the way sometimes they recategorize things, right, Mark? This is the problem between the 2024 to the 2025. There's sometimes a little bit of shuffling of the categories, and it's a little bit harder to make out exactly what's going to happen because they recategorize different aspects of immigration.
That's exactly right. So in my meeting, the presentation that we did, it was a little bit more forward-looking. So one of the things we obviously discussed in that in the express entry session was these little things here, rounds of invitations. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have as soon as these levels plans come out, and as soon as we see what's happening, I'm going to try to go live. It's been so crazy, Alicia, because we've just been so busy within the firm. And so it's hard to carve out that time. And I was also thinking with Halloween coming up that I'm probably overdue for some more scary immigration stories. And last year, while I was sitting here doing the trick or treating for the kids that were coming by, coming by the house, I turned on my live stream and did a rendition of scary immigration stories. And wow, I thought we had lots of good content for a video like that last year, but my goodness, this year it's like there. It's not even scary. It's just sad. And so, like we've said repeatedly, our hearts go out to everyone that's struggling, and we as a firm are doing our very, very best to try to help and support and give information that people can actually rely on to then make good decisions going forward. But the current numbers, I was at, where was I? Trying to remember all the different places that I went. I had another virtual presentation that I gave to the BC CLE with my good friend Craig Natsahara, and he pulled out a bunch of data. Now, it was geared towards work permits and international mobility program, which is what I covered, but he talked about kind of the levels, and the reality is probably not much more than 10% of the current foreign worker complement that's in the country is right now has a pathway forward to permanent residence. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at that and you've been counting for all these years that this is going to be something that's going to be available for you personally, your family, if you have one, it's just really, really sad.
Yeah, and that's been the consults recently, is that people are coming up to the end of their work permits and they did not maximize their time. And so if you had to switch employers, or if you by accident didn't realize that you needed to be in certain types of occupations or not be doing low skilled work, or because of what's been happening with espousal rules on open spousal work permits for spouses accompanying high skilled workers, a lot of people are not going to qualify. So even if one spouse is able to get an LMIA for their job, if that LMIA, the employer's LMIA, is going to support their new closed employer specific work permit, if that knock code for that principal applicant is not on the list, like it's not 0 or tier 1, it's
Yep.
not on the list of tier 2 or tier 3, your spouse can't work anymore. And that's,
No.
this is one of the ways they're forcing people out.
Yeah. And there's no other way to describe it than to acknowledge that they are forcing people out. And there are a couple things that we've seen, at least within the world of express entry, for people that are able to get ITAs, is that they are really showing no mercy. So two key things that I highlighted in my presentation yesterday were, just to alert other lawyers to it, was the reference letters. And, sometimes our clients recognize that their only hope is to get into one of the category-based draws. And so they will try to wedge, if there's a better word, themselves into those categories by trying to select a knock or get their employers to write creative reference letters so that they can fit into it. And you have to be careful with that, because as you go back, they are also scrubbing through, and there was a lot of discussion on AI as well at the conference. It was really quite good. We had three or four government representatives all talking about AI, and I'll share some of that information with the firm here, with you and Igor and Nicole and Prem. But yeah, it's they're moving forward, and there was a master's student or PhD student, I can't remember, who's doing research on AI and immigration, and it was quite fascinating, to just talk about, to see what the direction they're going and some of the pitfalls and concerns, and the lack of ability to really check and balance how AI is being utilized, and the bias that can creep into the assessments. And there's no such thing as a neutral AI tool. Every single AI tool is built with some form of bias, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And that's what we're seeing now within immigration. And there's nothing worse for us as lawyers than to prepare an awesome package and, a work permit or a permanent resident application or whatever it might be. And then, especially in the world of study permits and visitor visas, and realize that an officer never really looked at it in any degree of depth. They just took, the suggestions that were offered by AI and then just bulk made a whole bunch of decisions to refuse. And they're like, well, they're just not quite, where we want them to be. And they never really give a fair shot. So those are things that we're working through. And I know everybody that's tuned in now is watching, is wondering, well, what does the future hold? What is Canada going to do? Are they going to increase the levels? Are they going to leave them where they're at? Are they going to, what are the new category-based draws? And And, there are some very clear messages that were shared within that presentation. And one, well, I'll hold off for a little bit. I won't share it just yet. So we'll wait for a few more people to connect in. But there's some very clear indicators of where they're going to be going with these annual levels plans right here. So this right here, you can see is the 2025 to 2027. As Alicia indicated, by law, they have to release the levels plans for the next year basically before or on November 1st. And so we know that it's going to happen in any day now. And last year, I think it was October the 24th, maybe, that they had released it. So, why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because this drives all of the future decision making that they do next year. So for 2026, it really is the thing that drives it. Now there are ministers' mandate letters and things like that that also infuse into it. There's also the budget, which is also coming down the pike. That they have to get the money to do what they want to do, and in order to get the money, they have to pass legislation that authorizes the spending of that money and how it's allocated. So there's going to be lots to talk about, but we are so busy, Alicia. I was looking at my calendar, and because I've been away so much, it's pretty solid. So there is not a lot of time to do hardly anything. And if the levels plans come, I really want to talk about them quickly. But even Friday, Alicia, is like 9 to 5 solid. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I may need to shuffle some client stuff around, but maybe if with any luck, they'll release it early tomorrow morning, because I do have a little bit of a break between 9:30 and 11:30 that I could jump on and go live to talk about it. But yeah, it's crazy times. All right, and then to add one more thing, and I do want to acknowledge everybody that's out there. So, good morning to you, Rule. Looks like Rule Botan, Rule de Botan. Yeah. So, and Alicia is with me today. So, Igor is swamped with a very pressing, time-sensitive client matter that he could, that basically that's our priority, is our clients, and he needed to get that done. Anand, it's good to see you. And if you're tuning in for the first time, please give us a shout out. These are like this right now, the time that we're at is probably the most critical time for everybody that's in the country right now. The next few days will determine a lot of things in terms of your future. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do it. As soon as those levels plans are announced and I see them, I will go live and we'll flip it up and we'll talk and we'll answer your questions, and I'll try to carve out as much time as I can to do that. But everything rests on what happens with these levels plans. So be aware of that. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that and get notified as soon as you see that the live is going to happen. Okay, and I'll basically take everything that I learned from the immigration officer that I spoke with, and we'll kind of layer it over. But I wanted to give just a few more shout outs, and then we can go from there. Newman says the song is good, man. I was vibing, waiting for you. Yeah, isn't it cool? Of course, that was AI that created that, and it's pretty amazing what AI can do these days. And AI is definitely infused within everything that we do. Big shout out to Tulipa here. She said, "Blessed morning from out of Jamaica to you all. In spite of the Category 5 hurricane that hit Jamaica, I still get a chance to tune in. So we're going to give you some. Oh, let's get some belated applause here. So it's so good to have you connecting in, Tulipa, and our hearts go out to you and everyone in Jamaica. This is definitely hurricane season, isn't it? And boy, I hope everyone is okay there. Sam says major cuts are expected for levels plans and federal high skill, which ironically, guys, you can see on here as we've got it up, there is no federal high skill. So that was a terminology that they used before, and now they've morphed it into the federal economic priorities and the in-Canada focus. And one thing that we know above anything else, that French is going to continue to rise. And if you look at these rounds of invitations, you guys, and now it's probably appropriate to jump over here. Actually, Alicia and I, let's jump over here and then we'll pull up our levels plan here. So if we, let's see, this is the one I want. I got too many things going on, you guys. So if we look at this right here, you'll see that there is, within these rounds of invitations, there was a round just yesterday, CEC, another tiny one. So about 1,000 people. The scores are still super skyrocketed high. So, what does it take to get to that level? Well, multiple years of Canadian work experience, being young, not losing any age points, and probably speaking French, education, all those little things. But if
Plus
we look at
perfect
the
English, probably.
perfect English, yes, we cannot discount perfect English, or at least a level 5 in perfect French, right? So if we look here, you guys, you'll see that I went through in the presentation. I should almost pull it up. Let's see. That would actually be maybe useful. There's just so much to talk about, and I don't want to miss out on just sharing some of the intel. The question is, do I have? Well, give me a second here, you guys. Let's see. Okay. What's the best way of doing this? It's not going to be distractive to everyone. These are rough and tumble sometimes, you guys. These are rough and tumble. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, what's this good segue? So I can work on this in the background because it'll take me a second to pull it up.
Pull up a question,
Uh,
Mark.
uh,
I'll answer a question while you figure out how to pull up your
okay,
presentation.
let's do that. Okay, we'll pull one in for Alicia. We'll let her answer. And then I got to make sure I can move things around here. And then let's see. Let's see. Okay, there's a good one. We'll pull up right here. We'll pull up Louis' points here. Which one is this one? This one doesn't want to disappear. Just give me 1 second. Not that one. This one. Oh, it's locked. Sorry, guys. We're having lots of fun here. There we go. Okay, now let's get this aligned up here. Okay, so Louis points says when to accept or decline invitation in express entry if you are part-time hours, but the points were awarded already in the system, even if it is 2 months away to complete as part-time.
All right, so this is always something that crops up, and it's not an easy question to answer. So I mean, when Igor's here, we have the it depends thing that comes up, and again, this is a circumstance where it depends. And I'd really urge you to book a consult, Louise Points, because we need to know more about what are you not meeting points for, and is it your basic eligibility criteria? And if you're not meeting eligibility for CEC, right, if you're not hitting that 1 year high skilled Canadian work, then it's probably a no-go. You're probably in a situation where there's no way that you can proceed. If you're not meeting minimum program eligibility, same thing if you're not meeting minimum program eligibility for federal skilled worker. If you can't add up, and that one needs to be full-time equivalent over a period of 2 years. Do you have a year of full-time equivalent through different part-time jobs in the same NOC, though, on FSW? If you're doing CEC, you can look at different types of NOC codes, but it still needs to add up to that full-time equivalent of 30 hours a week for 52 weeks. So the question is it a minimum threshold for you not meeting that minimum 1 year, or are you looking at maybe a second year? And that's just going to change the CRS points a little bit. So you really need to understand, is it hitting minimum eligibility or not? And then sometimes it's possible, depending on when your invitation to apply is and how much time it's overcounted, you have to be really careful. You can't misrepresent, right? So you have to have honestly entered in your profile what each period of work was that you're claiming for points and how many hours you worked there. And you've got to be accurate on that, right? You can't just ballpark it and not have the data to support it. But if you clearly showed you averaged your hours over the entire period of time and you properly put it in, because the system doesn't ask for days, it only asks for months. So if you started on, I don't know, January 30th, you're going to get credit for having worked the entire month of January, even though you worked like a day. And that's the problem. And so it's up to you to do the calculation to see at the time that you get your ITA, did you actually hit your minimum eligibility criteria? Did you get the CRS points that you were claiming that you can back up with your time worked? Or is it possible that maybe by the time you submit your EAPR, you do have that time? And if that's not going to be the case, if you don't have enough time by the time you submit your EAPR for sure, that's a situation where it's not likely to succeed. And you are probably better going back into the pool, declining the ITA, making sure you hit your minimum eligibility criteria and the CRS you're claiming, and then go forward. But it's always a judgment call, and we'd want to know more information about, when does your work permit expire? What dates did you claim? Are you sure that you calculated your hours properly? Are you hitting minimum eligibility criteria? What's going to happen with your CRS score? And, when did you create your profile? So can you go back into the pool there?
Great. Thank you, Alicia. I'm going to pull up a super chat. This is from Raphael. He says, do you guys believe they would wipe out the pool with Bill C-12, mainly because they're total silence and don't want to spread panic? Well, the reality is at this stage, there's only one person really that knows, so we should probably bring her on. So here's our minister. If those of you who are not familiar with her or don't know her, that's totally understandable because she has been very, very quiet in the background, unlike our other ministers. Many of you probably don't even know who she is or what she looks like or anything. She's just been very, very silent. And I think part of the reason for that is this to some extent. Now, Bill C-12, and if we slide over here to our web, or sharing our web, we better make room for the minister here with us, Alicia. There we go. If we look at this is Bill C-12, you guys. And Alicia, do you want to just give a kind of a little high level? Let's just go here. Maybe this is better, isn't it? There we go. So this is the actual tracking of the bill through the House. And so if you see, it's past first reading, it's past second reading, and now it's gone to committee. And so there's no activity right now. We don't know exactly when this is going to become law, but it's definitely moving forward pretty quickly. It did not spend a lot of time as it advanced through. And so just less than a week ago, it completed the second reading. So this is where we're at, Alicia, this understanding the Strong Borders Act. And if this Bill C-2, if you guys are unfamiliar with this, I highly recommend that you look this up. Alicia, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so they announced this back in the summer, but then there were changes to it. And so now, we've got Bill C-2 and now there's Bill C-12, right? So there were some changes that were presumably implemented while they were looking at debating this. There were concerns, of course, about overreach and how things were going to play out in practice with the implementation of this bill. So yes, there are border and security measures in here. There's expanded information sharing in here. They have definitely things about the asylum claims in here. And that is a big one. And so we know that the processing times through the Refugee Protection Division and the number of refugee claimants has really, really increased.
Off the charts.
And so this is one of the areas where we do expect there to be significant change announced, probably through the new legislation, but it has not yet become, public in terms of what the measures are. But we think that there's going to be a strong tightening of who can make refugee claims when, how those refugee claims are going to be processed and decided because of that gigantic backlog right now. So that's one of the key things we're waiting to see. There's stuff about international and organized crime, information sharing, access to information, illicit financing. They're trying to give them stronger powers to catch criminals in terms of what's happening across borders and also how it relates to organized crime and human trafficking, immigration, that sort of thing. So we'll see how this plays out, and it remains to be announced. And you're right, Mark, we've not heard very much from Minister Diab. It's been very, very silent, and so probably there are things happening in the background.
Yeah. And just to show people, this is probably the one that's the most scary. Okay. So it's authority to strengthen control over immigration documents and applications. So every word in here means something, you guys, and the order in which it's put in here. I usually find anything that's at the very end in these types of announcements is the most important to pay attention to. So it's like control. Oh, of course you want to control immigration documents. Oh, and applications. Well, the reality is this power would give the government of Canada the ability, as they say, to respond to crises and unexpected events. So what is that? What does that mean? Well, it could mean just about anything. So, it's kind of couched in almost our humanitarian efforts, like with the the special measures for Iranians and Ukrainians and all those kinds of things. Well, the reality is, we had discussions just yesterday about H&Cs and how they're 50 years processing whatever they have listed. Like, it's basically, those are the pathways often for people in these situations to obtain permanent residence. But the government, with this bill, would have the ability to do what has been done before, which is cull out backlogs of applications. It's not unprecedented. Alicia and I remember very well, and it was 2012, maybe around there, when the conservative government did that with all of the federal skilled worker applications. There were a substantial number of the federal skilled worker FSW program applications that were in the queue before Express Entry was created. And then Express Entry was created to deal with that. So you could see here that could undermine the integrity of Canada's immigration system and the safety of Canadians. Like, this sounds like, oh, we're only doing this to protect against, the real, like, the safety and well-being of Canadians. Well, is the safety and well-being of Canadians affected because people are struggling to find housing, or people are, there's more pressure on our healthcare system because there's just more people, So to improve our ability to respond, so once again, these words, it's all, you have to pay attention to them. So it allows the government of Canada to cancel, and this is one of the most important words, suspend or change immigration documents. Well, what does that mean? Really? Cancel, suspend, or change immigration documents? Are they going to change your immigration documents to something? Like, no. It's cancel, and to suspend, cancel, or stop accepting new applications. That means applications that have already been submitted, they have the ability to stop allowing more. I don't know the difference between suspend or cancel. Maybe suspend the processing of an application that's already in the queue, or to cancel a whole bunch that are sitting in the queue, when such action is determined to be in the public interest, which is very, very vague. So this is why us as immigration lawyers have been so concerned about this. We've provided submissions to the government on this. We're constantly, addressing things. And, ultimately, there was a lot of problems, not problems, a lot of heartache with the last time they did this, Alicia. And it's going to be even magnified tenfold, because a lot of the people last time that weren't able to get through when they had their FSW applications were rejected, they were not already in Canada, right?
Yeah.
But these people now, these are people like all of you that are watching right now who are in Canada, that really, for all intents and purposes, have been hoping and dreaming for the opportunity to get permanent resident status. And now the government says, well, we just have too many of you, right? That's what they said. We have too many and there isn't room. And we are working to get the total population of temporary residents down to 5% of the total population. That is the goal. And if we just slide back here, I know we've been talking a lot about this, guys, but this is more of a prep, live Q&A for what's to come in the next couple days. And I'm just, you know what, Minister, I'm going to keep you here because, you don't appear otherwise. So we'll just keep you here. You can be with us. Okay. And you're welcome to join us, Minister, too, and talk about all this anytime you'd like to. So if we look here, you can see that the projections for numbers for temporary residents, I was looking at the numbers that Craig Nutsahara, that he'd shared, like they're already blowing past these numbers for this year. And so I'm not sure, like I'm really concerned, especially with the temporary residents, that they're going to be making some, even further drastic measures. And also I was quite sad to see, which I knew it was coming, as of the last changes to the temporary foreign worker program, like if we go here, temporary foreign worker program, unemployment rates, let's see if I can pull it up here. If we pull this up here, I was sad to see, let's see if we've got it here. I was sad to see this, Alicia. See that? That's an unbelievably massive shift. I don't know. Like, I look at all these other ones, Red Deer are the same. Is it just improper data? Like they just didn't report it properly? Because I was shocked. Like we went from 5.2 to 8.5, and Red Deer had basically the same kind of jump, 5.6 to 8.7. But what this means is there's virtually nowhere in Alberta almost that you can apply for a labor market impact assessment that falls within the low wage stream. So all
Yeah.
of our employers down here who are trying to use the temporary foreign worker program, and this is really a sledgehammer, and fraud is a reality. And so the government, I think often the response is not commensurate with really the evil that they're trying to overcome. But I think to a large extent, this is just an opportunity for them to find other tools to once again not allow people to stay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like the temporary foreign worker program, this is already the case. They have already
Yeah.
linked low wage temporary foreign worker LMIAs to unemployment rates. So, when people say the whole temporary foreign worker program is broken, it is working exactly
Yes.
how they wanted
Hmm.
it to work
Yeah.
to keep people from applying. So, without even making any other changes, it's already excluding almost everybody under the low wage
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So,
So if the conservatives saying they want to scrap it, not smart.
yeah.
Um,
So,
it's
yeah,
just
like it's
it's just
already doing that.
overkill. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's overkill.
The other thing I'd say too, Mark, in terms of the temporary foreign worker numbers, you got to be careful with numbers. Are you double
Hmm.
counting or are you counting people who are doing renewals? And that is the big thing is if you crunch the data to say the difference between people who are already here and who are just renewing that permit, then you haven't blown past your target in terms of new temporary foreign workers entering the country. So we'll see. We'll see what the levels plan say.
You bet. All right, let's pull this one up here, Alicia, for you. So this is Charmaine. Maybe you remember. Says, "Hi, Alicia. Thank you for your time." Let's expand this a little bit. Thank you for your time yesterday. Very enlightening. Can the company still apply for an LMIA even though I'm already working in the position?
Yeah, and so this goes for everybody, and Charmaine, yes, we definitely had more discussion on this, but in general, if you are looking at asking your employer to go out and advertise and recruit for your position, you can currently be working in that position. But the problem is that your employer has to justify they're opening up this position to the public. They have to be very careful about properly advertising it on the job bank. They have to do all these things with job match and direct apply, which is a whole other story. But they have to go through this process. They have to advertise in other national in scope for high wage occupations. They have to have at least 3 different advertising platforms that they continue to keep up. And they have to show that they make legitimate efforts to actually find Canadians for this position. And this is where it becomes really difficult because depending on what not code they're trying to recruit, it may or may not be justifiable to try to offer the position to a foreign worker, right? If you're looking at an entry level position or a lower skilled knock, so something that's a tier 3 and something that's kind of doesn't require specialized knowledge or particular backgrounds and not very technical, it is really hard for a company to try to justify the fact that they can't find a Canadian to fill that role. So when companies are looking at doing LMIAs, it depends on the jurisdiction. So where is this job located? Because sometimes there's arguments for companies that have more rural offices or that are more specialized to say, look, we really can't find, I don't know, land surveyors in northern BC, for example, right? That's,
Yeah.
there's an argument to be made there. But if you were trying to hire a cook in a giant city, it's going to be really hard for that employer to justify why they need an LMIA for a foreign worker. So that's the problem.
Mm, awesome. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, there's so many awesome comments. I don't want to miss these. Spider-Man says, "Am I invisible?" Nope, you guys are there, and it's good to see you as well, Joe. Delving into the chaotic world of immigration, absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. I was just jumping around here, you guys. Um, yeah, Raphael says, "Do you guys believe they're going to reset the pool?" I know we don't need a crystal ball here, but there's no need to worry about resetting the pool, you guys. It doesn't accomplish anything. Um, you know, no, there's no resetting. The reality is it refreshes itself, and people with low scores are just not going to get drawn anyway. So it just the pool. And ironically, one of the pieces of data that was shared yesterday in the presentation is the total number of people in the pool has actually gone down, which is expected. People outside of the country are not submitting expressions of interest, profiles into the pool because they know they don't have a shot unless they speak French. So people are just not wasting the time to submit a profile in if they know they've got no chance of getting drawn. Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones here. Okay, I'll just hit a few of these ones because it's just kind of funny.
And
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
to go to Raphael's point, I'm not
Mm,
worried about them wiping out the express entry pool of
mm,
candidates because it's just an expression of interest system.
yeah,
What I am more worried about is
yeah,
like the humanitarian and compassionate application stream.
yeah.
What if they just wipe that out, right? Or what if they say they are only taking applicants from certain countries, or they have quotas, or they implement some sort of lottery system? Because that's where you have ballooning processing times, and that's where you have an inventory of applications that they have a really hard time trying to get through based on the levels plan in terms of how many new applications they can process per year.
Yeah. Anish, shout out to you. I'm going to give you one of these. Anish says, thank you, Mark, and the entire team for all you do. The course and the masterclass is phenomenal. Oh, we're definitely going to have another masterclass coming up here right away. And I think those of you who are familiar with everything that we've been doing over the years are very familiar with the Express Entry masterclass that we have. I'm going to pull it up here quick, just so everybody understands what we're getting at here. This one right here. So you can see there's a free PDF guide. And the course itself here, the accelerator course, this is the one that we're talking about. And yeah, every other Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m., we do the masterclass. And once you subscribe to it, you get access to life for life. And we've got a full breakdown of all of everything that's a part of this course. And stay tuned because there are going to be some significant updates that are going to be happening here. So truly underrated. I think it is because most people, so much is free online. They're just like, well, what value is there in it? Well, the course itself has the value, but then every 2 weeks you get to join me live and kind of like a webinar, almost like a Zoom call. So you can turn your camera on, we talk, other people share insight, the challenges that they're going through. And that happens every 2 weeks on Wednesday. And you can come back as many times as you want. But congratulations to you, Anish. Finally received my PR card last week. Keep up the great work. So we'll give you another applause here. Thanks so much for that. Okay, let's see here. He says, I'll be back in 2 years. Hopefully the course will be ready then. Yes, this is Igor's course. Igor's been just grinding away here, and he's been just trying to get this course out, and it has just been really tough because we've been really, really, really busy. And then Indy says, I was going to ask who will trigger the, well, it depends if Igor is absent. Well, that's a good question. Maybe we'll have to just save that special just for Igor. Oh my goodness, Spider-Man. What's this Spider-Man? With weight lost more and more, Mark is looking more and more like Mark Carney.
Well, you know what?
Seriously.
Mark's been playing a lot of pickleball. So
Yeah, see, I'm adding my medals now as I start to play pickleball last year, adding the medals behind. It's been good. It's gotten me some exercise. Now, my body, I'm having to adjust a few things now because it's getting wore out. And but no, it's all good. Okay, Lewis Points, you're very welcome. And let's but this guy says, but he's not panicking like Mark Carney. I think that's in reference to me looking like Mark Carney. Interesting. That's kind of funny. Well, hopefully I'm a little bit younger than Mark Carney, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. How old is he? I
I
don't
don't
know how
remember,
old.
but he runs like serious trail running marathons
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah. That's what they do. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Uh, okay. Joe says he's ready with popcorn when the live comes up for the levels plans. You bet. And then, oh, I love how you guys interact. Then we got some popcorn there. Let's see what else. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Mohammed says, hey, what about processing times of LMIA based work permits from outside Canada? It's just, these are just, I don't know what to say, right? Like these, to have work permits, they're basically using the processing times as a management tool. So they're saying we're only going to process this many. Why are they only processing so many each year? It's because of this, you guys. Okay. They have instituted what they believe caps. So the temporary foreign worker program, if they say for 2025, they only want 82,000 to be admitted, and you are submitting an application for an LMIA-based work permit, and they've already blown past that by the end of the year, well, then they basically just stop processing. And, to a large extent, that's what's kind of driving the ship.
But keep in mind they're rotating, like they're
Yeah,
rolling, right? So
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
applications they get now are probably going to be issued in
yeah,
2026.
2026. So, all right. Here's another super chat. This is from Addie. She says 20s, been in Canada since 2012. Oh my goodness. Wow. Did you come as a minor with your parents? Like that's an awful long time. Almost 14 years. 13. Um, Postgrad expires in December. Current score is 470. 3 years Canadian experience, maxed out English. French seems like my only option. What other options do I have? Well, this is a perfect example of why we'd want you to book a consult with us. And for those who are unfamiliar or just tuning in for the first time, one of the things that we really love to do is talk to you and help you. And so you can just click on speak to a lawyer and it'll take you right here and you can book, you can book right away a consultation with Alicia, myself, or Igor. It's all right here. And you just choose the kind of consultation you want and you can jump right in. I'm just curious what my calendar shows. Wow, nothing for this month. Let's see. So it'd be Tuesday and then it's open. So that's not too bad. I don't think, Alicia. And then let's see, Alicia's consults.
I don't have
Oh,
anything
she's
else
got
really
time.
good in the week. Oh, maybe
She's
I have stuff tomorrow. There
she's
we
got
go.
time Thursday. There we go. Yeah, this is always quite interesting. And then Igor as well. Let's see what he has. He's got lots of time. So we're good. You can get into us. We have time, even though our schedules are pretty wonky, pretty crazy right now. Okay, so as far as options, Alicia, do you want to hit some high level here for Addie?
Yeah. So, Addie, I always want to know a little bit more about what kind of degree did you do? What's your highest level of education? What kind of jobs have you been working? Yes, probably French is a good option no matter what, right? I don't see any downside in you trying to learn French because that can increase your score. I'm assuming you're single, that you don't have a spouse or common law partner, but that's always something to think about as well if you do have a common law partner or legally married. The other thing is there something that you can do for at least 6 months equivalent full-time work that's in a targeted occupation? And there aren't many of them that don't require retraining or going back to school. But sometimes, if you actually have to leave and you're able to do whatever work you want in your home country, is it possible for you to work for 6 months in maybe as a nursing aide, right? Get that experience because you can keep your CRS for your CEC. You get to keep the benefit of having Canadian work experience for within the past window of time, as long as you have 1 year within the last 3 years. And so you have an advantage over many other foreign applicants because of that. And so if you can then get your 6 months in a targeted occupation, whether it's in Canada or outside Canada, whatever, as long as it is legitimately in that role, you're doing the job duties, you have the employer letter, the pay stubs to back up what you're doing, and you can prove it, then you're eligible for a targeted draw. And then right away, that's going to give you a much better chance at a 470 if you can go into one of the targeted occupation draws. So yeah, it might mean changing careers for a little while, changing course, but it might be worth it given what options you have.
Yeah. All right, we've got a bunch of other ones here. I want to make sure I'm not missing any. Next super chat is Raul, and he says, "I've got an AOR for mom's HNC application, so just an acknowledgement of receipt a month ago, but no biometrics yet. She must travel abroad for 3 to 4 months. Will this affect her application? What can we do?" Once again, and I don't know, Raul, if you filed it yourself or what you did, but can it have the impact of undermining arguments? Yeah, especially when your mother's gone for 3 to 4 months. Well, that suggests that maybe she's not as vulnerable as you may have laid out in your original H&C. And remember, H&C isn't just a throwaway that you do when nothing else is there. Like you actually have to have grounds for it. And when you have more and more people with the same the same characteristics, if you will, within their application, that have the same types of backgrounds. And there's only so many spots, and they have to pick and choose. If you are no different than the other, 10,000 people that are also submitting HNCs, then it starts to water down or reduce what would be considered something that would stir in the hearts of a Canadian, a desire to, relieve that person of their potential suffering if they had to go home. And that's what we're seeing right now. But with the processing times for HNCs, this is where the Bill C2 really is, a concern. I never would have in my wildest dreams thought that HNCs would just be culled, but is definitely on the radar. Your thoughts, Alicia?
Yeah, or parent and grandparent. That's the other thing is, there's some types of application category or the startup visa program. So that's where the processing times and the backlogs have become the largest. And so when you have a huge backlog and you have a very long processing time, those are the application categories that I start to worry about. Maybe they are going to wipe them out. Maybe they're going to reset. Maybe they are going to suspend or cancel some applications. Maybe they're going to have it some sort of triage system or some sort of lottery system. And startup visas, H&Cs, parent and grandparent applications are the ones that are pretty vulnerable right now because so many people have applied and they're just not being able to move them along. So we'll have to see what happens, but those are the categories where we have seen those long processing times.
Mm-hmm. Raj says, how much of a PNP quota has been increased in Nova Scotia in 2025? So this is something that we're seeing now. Okay, so there has been, the provinces have been able to negotiate a few more spots from the federal government. If we look at the levels plans once again here, let's see, did I choose wrong? Yeah. If we look at the levels plans for the permanent residents, you'll see that the actual numbers for PNP right here used to be 110,000 and went down to 55. And I'm going to just try this. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Let's see. Not really. Let's see. Give me a second, you guys. Share. Acrobat. Okay. I might be able to make this one work. Just give me a second. Trying to get it to fit, and I need to add in Alicia here. There we go. This is one I haven't used, this little slide, for a while, and realistically, I want this to be bigger so we can make this fit and push this one out this way. Oh, good times. Okay, so this is kind of my slide deck that I used. And so you can see here, so this is what it was in 2024. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but we'll just roll with it. You guys will have to squint and look close. So the PNPs here, provincial nominee programs, there's 110,000 that were on the books, and they actually had intended to increase it to 120,000 for 2025. But in reality, what happened was they slashed it down in half, and they've just said, and their plans say that it's not going to change. So that's the interesting thing. They projected for 2026 it'd be 55,000, for 2027 it'd be 55,000. But what they did was they pulled some of these ones up to these categories. So now we have, like, what is it, 123, 124 in change from last time, where it was the total numbers were 110. So it actually went up a little bit because they pulled some from the PNPs. And so and then you can see here, and this is the presentation that I shared to the Canadian Immigration Law Association on just yesterday in Toronto. But the overall plans show a reduction in numbers, so 395 to 380 to 365. So this is what we want to watch, because they are guidelines. They're not locked in. Technically, 2025 is locked in. But what I want to point out here is, even though they reduced it to 55, theoretically, they still can go in a high range of 65. So that's kind of what we've been seeing with some of the provinces. Even Alberta got a boost of about 1,500, or I can't remember how many total spots. But for Nova Scotia, I think it was like 500 or so. I think it was right around there. I think it was about 500 and change, 550 or something. You can just Google it. But that's what we've seen within the PNPs. Now, what I want to show you, and we kind of got a little bit sidetracked, but I think I can probably slide back now to to what we were talking about before. But with the rounds of invitations, and let me see if I can find this. I've got way too many things going on. I can't help to show this one. Anyone here tonight, you had better be there cheering our Blue Jays on, who just tied it up with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Game 5 is tonight for the World Series. It is coming back. Oh my goodness! I wonder how much the tickets are, Alicia. Let's just. I'm curious
it's like
here.
$2,000 to $5,000.
Let's see. So this is the Dodgers. I don't care about the Dodgers. The wrong one. So that's buying tickets to that. Dodgers. See. Let's just see here. Ticketmaster. Let me see if I can find. I'm just curious. Okay. Blue Jays home, the 29th. No. So we are at Los Angeles. Yeah, this is the home game. Let's just see. I'm curious. Find tickets. Okay. Let's see. Moment of truth, you guys. I think we need to create a GoFundMe campaign, Alicia. See, it's really quite inexpensive, you guys, to get some tickets here. It's only 1,773 to get kind of the nosebleed tickets. So you can spend, or you can go up to 7,210. So let's see these sweet ones here. There's actually quite a few that are available. What do you think, Alicia? Should we get a couple tickets for the firm? And yeah, and these ones here, like, that's crazy. It's literally like $4,000 to have this view.
Yeah.
That's behind the plate.
Yeah.
Okay. Alicia's like, seriously, Mark, this is an immigration. No one cares about baseball. Yes, they do. This is the last time this happened was like over 30 years ago. Anyways, okay, back on track. So I'll just shut that off. Okay, so back on track. I'm just going to go back to the rounds of invitations again. So if we slide over here and we pull this up and we look at the previous rounds and invitations, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, and this to a large extent, this also comes from here, and I'm going to slide over the CRS score distribution. So in here, and like I said, as of October the 13th, now we've had 2 draws since then. We've had a CEC and a PNP. So for all intents and purposes, we're not too far off with this. But this is what I want to show everyone. So the rounds of invitations, as of the beginning of October, CEC had 19,350. So it's really 20,000 now, because the round of invitation, I think that we had in the most recent one was 1,000, right? Even. So if we look at this here and we see the previous rounds of invitations, education was 3,500, trades was 1,250. And then we flip over to the next one here, there's been no STEM, no ag. And for all intents and purposes, STEM is actually SEM, which we've talked about, no tech. And agriculture is actually just butchers. So, and the irony is that under the we don't have health yet. Okay, under the trades category, they have cooks, which is a major skill group 6, and then under the ag, they have butchers, which is also a major group 6, which is so weird how they've allocated that. But the big question are the French language draws. And so if we look at this, don't run away. If we look at this, you can see that there have been 29,500 total. And Jonathan, in his presentation, actually shared kind of statistics. And I think it was around 70-some thousand, high 70s, that have been issued invitations. So what percentage of the total ITAs are French? So I don't know. Do you guys, if those that are watching, I'm going to leave you guys in suspense. I want to see what percentage you guys think the total ITA. Some of you will get it right on because you'll just punch it into ChatGPT or something. But the question, the question is for you guys, and I'm waiting for you to post. What is the total percentage of ITAs so far issued are Francophone? So out of all of them that are issued, we know that there's basically just about 30,000 that have been Francophone year to date. So what percentage of all ITAs is just those Francophone draws? So post in the comments. So we'll see what people have to say here. Because this is something that I think, when we look at the levels plans, if we slide back here and we go back to our annual levels plans, we know that French has become a very, very important factor when they're deciding. And my questions within the presentation were, is Express Entry the best tool to reach these goals with our, with our Official Languages Act, and even embedded within IRPA itself is the need to help with minority languages in Canada. So right here, it says 8.5% was their target. Well, I think we've kind of blown by that. It's taken a while for people to respond. Wow, I'm surprised that more people haven't responded. So Akil says 30%. Okay, what others? What do you guys feel? Okay, here we go. Now they're coming. Okay, Kerr says 40%. Shirley says 30%. Anybody else got thoughts on what total percentage? Fuad has 32%. Okay. We'll get a couple more responses here for you slackers. Are you guys sleeping? What are you doing? we want a good poll. And the question is 29,000, like what percentage of all of the ITAs issued so far are francophone? What percentage? See if one more person throws out a comment, and then we'll once one more person does, there we go. There we go, Joe. Thank you, my friend. So Joe actually went in and did the math, which is great. The 10%, 32, 25 to 30. So I was waiting on someone to actually do the math. And the response, you guys, is, let's see if we can get it here, 41.1. So, and maybe I rounded down, maybe I rounded up, but that's it. So of all the ITAs issued, there's basically 41.1%, and maybe it's gone down a little bit now because of CECs. But understand, with all of that, and I'm going to jump back here as well, taking that into consideration, know that with all of these rounds of invitations, CEC is going to be heavily influenced by French. So even the CEC draws that are 19 or 20,000 now, there's going to be a strong French influence in here, because that's what's driving scores up there. Even education. I've done an EAPR we filed recently for someone in the education category who was older, but they had French, which allowed them to qualify within one of these ITA groups. And then trades, even trades, French plays a role in it. So in addition to everything that we're seeing here, the reality is, and healthcare, of course, the French language really is heavily dominating this. And so the question that I asked, and this is what I had presented in my presentation, is economic integrity versus linguistic priorities, and is Express Entry the right tool to meet the Francophone goals? So that's just a question, and we talked about the underlying rationale for why we're doing what we're doing, but there's a lot of the Official Languages Act. This is law, right? But it's the mechanism and the tool that the government uses to achieve that result, and the expense and the cost to other people who are trying to get those spots. So I know I kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but yeah, Kerr says, do you guys feel the percentage for French will be more next year? And yeah, I think people are quite surprised. And so maybe it's 50, maybe it's 60% have some French influence within the application process. So they're accomplishing their goals. Okay, let's make sure I'm not skipping through any other super chats here. Okay, Seb says, okay, 119 requires bachelor or college diploma in business or related admin field is required. Would my 2-year office admin diploma in Canada qualify?
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
so there's always a little bit of debate when we look at the ministerial instructions respecting Express Entry, and they talk about now Canadian work experience versus foreign work experience. So there's a little bit of a difference. But when we are looking at Express Entry, and I'm assuming this is an Express Entry question, if we're looking at Express Entry and qualifying work experience, there's different regulatory definitions for foreign work experience and Canadian work experience. One of the key things under Express Entry is that in general, you have to be meeting the lead statement. So that opening paragraph, and most people blow by this one and they forget it, and they're Employer letters don't often have it, but the activities of the lead statement. So when you open up the NOC under Job Bank or under the National Occupation Classification Code, it will say kind of an overall statement about what this job is. Here it is, right? So these other administrative services managers, they plan, they organize, they direct, they control, they evaluate departments that are responsible for corporate governance and regulatory compliance, records management, security services, admissions, and other administrative services. So this is what they do. That is kind of the meat and potatoes of the job. And so there needs to be something in your letters, in your job description that says that you're doing that. And then it's the main duties. So now we go down and then we look at those bullet pointed main duties. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And so in the ministerial instructions, it says you have to show that you are doing a substantial number of these duties in addition to doing the activities of the lead statement. And so that is what immigration officers are tasked with reviewing. That's what they have to assess. And it's important that you show that if you're doing a tier 0 job, you have some sort of logical connection and ability to do that kind of high level work. So yes, we do have requirements for these positions. Like when you go to Job Bank, it has the requirements. When you go down here, it talks about requirements. There has to be some logical connection, right? There has to be the sniff test to make sure that it makes sense. But there's nothing specifically that says, unless it's a regulated occupation, there's nothing specifically that says this is mandatory before you can do it unless you're looking at a regulated occupation. If you're looking at regulated occupations, that's a different issue.
And so this here now is really kind of the crux of it. So you can see here, we have the duties like Alicia indicated. The ministerial instructions lay that out. For the purposes of the Federal Skilled Worker Program, when you're looking in IRPR and just looking at the requirements, the Immigration Refugee Protection Act and its regulations, there's a very clear statement that says these things, employment requirements, are not to be taken into consideration when you're determining work history. But I can tell you guys, if you are saying that you are, whatever it might be, this here as a manager, and you're paid $15 an hour Canadian, and you do not have anything related to these employment requirements, an officer can still question whether or not you actually did the job. So sure, if you look here, anytime it says usually required, means it's not mandatory. So if we go through here, usually, maybe, may require. So in your comment here, you said it requires a bachelor or college diploma in business. Well, it doesn't actually require that for this particular occupation. A bachelor's degree or college diploma in business administration or a related administrative services field is usually required. So this means it's not mandatory. So they can't refuse, your work permit if you're applying for a labor market, an LMIA-based work permit. They will look at these, and if you don't have them, they can use those as a ground for refusal. But for the purposes of express entry or going through, even other work permits, if it says usually required, then that's not mandatory. So it's we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think that's important because people are forgetting this. And I have to say, in my course, we cover this in detail, you guys. We go in detail in our record of employment section. And so definitely take a look at that. Okay, we've got a few others here that I want to get to. The super chats are piling in quick, fast, and furious. Okay. Oh, this is a tough one. Okay. Josh says, I can't reach my representative and want control of my express entry profile. Link and application won't work. Do I submit a web form to withdraw? Do I have to wait for them to process web form before re-entering? Josh, it's always this. Now, I think if you said you've tried to do that, I'll just show you something here. Let's see here. If I go to the YouTube channel, let's go to ours here. Okay. So let's see. I think I can search mine here. How to fire. Okay. I do have this one. So how to fire your consultant and take back your express entry profile. So this one here does give an overview of how to do it. And the key, if you're trying to take back your own application, you need to make sure that you are entering the information exactly as it was entered when your application was submitted. Otherwise, the system won't let you link it. So you need to have that basic background information in order to be able to link it. But I recommend that you book a consult, Josh, and we can walk through the logistics, where you're at, the issues, all those kinds of things. Remember, it's just your profile. I shouldn't say just your profile. You know, that's not as hairy as having an ITA and then trying to link it and, you know, having timelines you're dealing with. But Alicia, do you have any extra thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's possible to cancel your representative and then, try to get back access to your own account. But you do want to be careful that you know and understand what was submitted in your profile, because there's always potentially the risk of misrepresentation if you have things that a consultant put in your profile that you're not aware of or that are contradictory to what you're going to be putting in the future.
Okay. All right. This is a super chat from Nontiza. This is kind of in your wheelhouse here, Alicia. I got an AOS nomination, no job restrict. My expression of interest had
Rural
RRS
renewal stream
points, rural
points.
renewal
Yeah.
stream points, job offer plus endorsement. Can I change to a new employer, same knock, which meet all AOS requirements outside of the RRS area before my PR?
Nope.
I'm
Nope. And
squirrely. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we would need to know more, but I have had so many consults recently.
Yeah.
AAIP is they are checking everything right now.
Everything.
They are checking everything. And I think, Mark, part of the reason that the provinces have more nomination allocation spots is because they are refusing applications because people are not meeting criteria and they're actually using that new nomination to try to give somebody else a chance. Because I
Oh,
have seen so many refusals from AAIP recently, not on my files, knock on wood, but other
mhm.
people who filed
Interesting.
applications.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So
Other
there
people who
maybe
have
isn't
filed
new ones,
applications.
but just the old ones they'd previously allocated are now being
I
rejected.
honestly think so, because I have had so many people come to me with refusals from AAIP. I have had, I'll tell you a few stories, naming no names and not having
Yep.
anything identifiable, but one applicant who had submitted their AAIP, like last year, they finally contacted the employer and then they contacted the employee and they said, "Oh, you know what? We're going to refuse your nomination because your employer actually let their business account lapse and the business has
Yeah.
been struck from the record for failing
Yep.
to file
Yep.
annual returns."
Saw that one.
And that has nothing to do with the employee. They can't do anything about that, but the employer has to do stuff about that. But what that means is that AAIP is literally running core searches, right? They're running a nuance
Yep.
report. They're seeing if what's happening, who are the directors, where's the office. I saw another person who the corporate office was in somebody's residential house, right?
Yep.
So it wasn't actually in a place of work and they canceled the nomination. I had another person who, similar to this, they were claiming rural renewal stream points and they had an endorsement from the city. But when they were looking at the calculation of their education points, their consultant had said, "Okay, well, you have a foreign master's degree,
Oh.
but you finished
Oh.
a 2-year diploma in Alberta. Why don't you just list your highest education as your Alberta diploma, get the 4 points there, but then get the 10 points to say your highest level of education
Yeah.
was in Alberta?"
Just a misunderstanding of how it
That
works. Yep.
that gives you 14 points. But if they had
Yep.
properly done it, then they would have claimed the 10 points for their foreign masters, and they can't claim any Canadian education points. And so the AAIP officers literally calling people and they said, "Do you have a master's outside of Canada?" "Yep, yep, I have a master's." "Okay, we're denying your application because now you didn't hit the points threshold for
Yep.
the draw that we invited you in." So to answer this question, everything that you claimed points for in your application has to be still true and justifiable at the time that your application proceeds. And if things change, literally you have an obligation to notify AAIP because otherwise it can be misrepresentation and they can bar you for 5 years from the program and they can cancel their nomination. So you have to tell them if you are thinking of changing employers. But if you change employers and that new employer is not on the list for your city CEC and you don't have an updated rural renewal stream endorsement, that can definitely jeopardize your application. So you've got to be super careful. Please book a consult because that's not
Yeah.
a good situation.
Yeah. Arjun, I see you've got a super chat, but you got to post your question so we know what that is. Okay. Whew, boy. All right, man, this is, we've got a lot of ground to cover here. Okay, here's one. This is an interesting one from Anand. I'm just curious, do you actually get consults from US citizens wanting to come to Canada? What are the reasons for coming? Okay, so well, I think you guys all know. So people are dissatisfied with, the the way the country is being run in the US. Politics are a big deal in the US. And so when Donald Trump was first elected, I remember I've done two separate kind of move to Canada after the election kind of things. And the first one, there was a lot of talk. I'm moving. If Trump gets elected, I'm moving. No one moved. No one. But things are different now because they have control over, the vast majority of things. They can make decisions, they can move forward, and they don't have to listen to anyone who isn't, aligned with their politics. And so some people are saying, look, I just don't want to live here anymore. And so are we having consults? Yeah, tons. And are we helping people? Yes. I think one of the most common areas for me is Canadian citizens who are married to US citizens who've lived there for years, who are now coming back to Canada. So we do a lot of that spousal sponsorship. It's not as easy for other people to come. Some people have worked for companies that have subsidiaries in Canada, and then they want to do an intercompany transfer. Others fit under the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, the CUSMA, as professionals, and they have job offers. And so are we having consults? Yes, we are. Absolutely. Yeah.
Tons of them. And the other thing I will say is it's difficult unless you are very young, right? So what happens is for American citizens who do not have Canadian education or Canadian work experience, you can't use CEC. So you have to use the federal skilled worker under express entry. And the problem with federal skilled worker is you have 2 points grids. You have the selection criteria pass mark of 67 points before you can even look at your CRS score. And for a lot of Americans, if you're more senior in your career and you've been working in that job for 15 years, you might not be hitting your pass mark of 67 points. And that's the big problem. Even though you're highly educated, you've got work experience, you're otherwise a very skilled candidate, it's that pass mark. And so often the discussion is, well, can you get a work permit in Canada? And that's why we're talking about intercompany transfers. That's why we're talking about Koodo professionals, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. And even saying, well, I'm going to go do a master's in Canada now, like even studying is really difficult. The number of approvals on study permits has dropped drastically, and even extension of existing study permits, processing times have climbed off the charts. So once again, the situation that we're in right now, as far as these numbers that the government is trying to reduce, was largely driven by international students, which is not their fault. But the schools, the programs that were available, the reality of express entry also drove all of those factors. And now individuals are here and pathways are just virtually non-existent. So when you're outside of Canada looking to come in, you're competing against everybody that's already in Canada. And like Alicia said, unless you have French and you can somehow, distinguish yourself, it's even coming to study. The government is really scrutinizing those study permit applications. Okay, Arjuna, here's the question. I submitted an application in August. Okay, August, September, October. Okay, we're so new. I called recently and they said review required. Okay, but I got P1. Am I safe now? Will GCMS delay application processing? So you are most definitely not safe now. Okay, so when it comes to the eligibility determination, you need to request your GCMS notes. You're going to request those. It's not going to, who cares if it delays? You need to figure out what they're looking at and try to get some insight into it. I'm a firm proponent of being proactive. If I request GCMS notes because a file seems like it's hung up or it's stalled out and it's not moving forward, I will request those so that I can see if there's any intel on what their concerns are. And if I see that an officer is saying, oh, there's something with work and referred, for further review, then I'm going to do everything I can to go back in, look at the client's application. Often they've submitted it on their own. And I'll go through forensically, looking at everything, putting my old officer hat on, saying, hey, let's see what we can try to understand what their problems are. And generally speaking, Alicia and Igor and I, we can see it. Like when we look at your application, we can identify it. We've done so many of these. And so then if I identify it, then we'll get a new employer letter. We'll get whatever we need to, prepare a letter of explanation, and we'll submit it through a web form to try to preempt, the procedural fairness letter that may very well be coming. So these are some of the strategies that we absolutely do. So, yeah. All right, let's hit a few others here as I go through this list. Okay, here's one. This is from Parva Vlogs. Can you please confirm if marriage happens after acknowledgement of receipt? Now, this is probably going to be an EAPR application, you guys, an express entry. Will IRCC recalculate CRS or keep it the same?
So one of the things that they have are the A11.2, kind of how they process express entry applications, and this is where they have the program guidance. And I don't know if you can find it in time mark, but that's where it is. So assuming it is an express entry application, if you've submitted that express entry application and you get married, you have a positive obligation to tell IRCC that you now have a spouse. Because otherwise you run into 117 sub 9 sub D that says if you get married and you do not disclose your spouse and you don't have them medically examined and pass a criminality check, have their police certificates evaluated, then you can never sponsor them in the future ever, right? So you have to tell them. Now this becomes a matter of, are you able to add them to the application or not? And what happens if you add them? Because will that change your score such that, actually the score is there, but will it change your other eligibility criteria in terms of the settlement funds if you are under FSW? So that's the issue usually. And you have to also prove that it's a genuine relationship, not for immigration purposes. So it's kind of like a mini spousal.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So generally speaking, like Alicia said, like if marriage happens after you filed your EAPR, then you may, you may be okay adding. Like, do they recalculate the CRS or keep it the same? Yeah, like Alicia said, they won't recalculate CRS if the marriage happens after you file your EAPR. But we've seen so many people right now. One question I have is, were you common law? Like, is the marriage something that happened just kind of part and parcel, but you guys were already living together? In some cases, that's a situation, and that can be a huge problem because common law, they treat it the same as married spouses. So be aware of that. Yeah.
And here's the other big problem with respect to medical inadmissibility and criminality. They still have to assess those. And
Yep.
if the person you're marrying has elder kids, like kids that are between
Yep.
the ages of 18 to 20 from a
20.
previous marriage,
Yeah.
like this can tank your application as well, right? So if you
Yep.
do not have everybody, even if they're non-accompanying, assessed in terms of criminality and in terms of medical admissibility, they can refuse your application. And I have seen people who had PFLs on just this issue recently.
And we'll pull up NDOE here. Nice to see you guys. Alicia is a brilliant lawyer who I'd recommend to anyone. Yes, indeed. I was actually responding to, just the other day, I respond to every single Google review that's posted on our website. And there was a Google review that was posted for Alicia, that by Abigail, that was just off the charts. She says, the reviews are absolutely true. Alicia Backman-Bahari is extremely thorough and detail oriented. She takes the time to go over every single question with you, whether it's for the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, EOI, or Express Entry. She starts by reviewing your consultation and asks you to upload previous documents. She goes through this whole lengthy explanation that it's so cool. And so I love going through there and seeing what people are saying about Alicia and Igor. And so when you guys come in and you're watching live, thank you so much. That really, really means a lot. The world is full of all kinds of reps, all kinds of people out there all kinds of talking heads, like, you're seeing right now with Alicia and I. And we do this as a way of giving back because we don't do free consultations, but this is our way of trying to help. So when we answer one person's question in this live Q&A, thousands of other people can see that same question and benefit from it. So we can amplify the outreach and the pro bono stuff that we do. Now, another real critical reason we do this is for social proofing. Like, we want people to see, like, we can't fake this stuff, right? It's not like some curated video where ChatGPT has helped to script it and someone, is reading from the script and really doesn't know all the nuance of immigration. We do this to demonstrate just basically our knowledge of immigration. And hopefully that resonates. And that's what causes people to book consultations. I look just on Friday. The reason I don't have any room is because I'm booked chock full, literally from 9 to 5. I have two review calls of 2 hours each. So there's 4 hours. And then I have a post onboarding call for someone who's retained me. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, essentially 6 in the morning from 9 to noon, which one is an hour long consult. So those are always a little bit interesting. But this is why we do what we do, you guys. It's a way to kind of get our message out there. We're not a big firm. We don't have a big marketing budget. We don't pay anything for Google ads or anything like that. We just try to produce good content and hope that it works. Now, I will let you know that I'm probably going to do a reprise of my Halloween scary immigration stories on Friday. So stay tuned for that. As I'm sitting here doing trick-or-treating with the kids on Friday, I may very well do a little scary stories. Now, I know you guys all be at your Halloween parties or whatever you're doing on Friday, but those of you who are around, I'll probably kickstart that maybe around 6 o'clock or something on Friday, but I'll keep you posted. Okay, next here, let's see here. Here's one, Alicia. Can one skill be retaken for IELTS for the purposes of express entry? Because there's a mechanism that IELTS has, and actually IELTS and CELPIP were at the conference. Both of them had representatives there, but yes, as far as the IELTS, Alicia, and express entry, does express entry allow people to retake one ability?
No, and so if you go to Express Entry, you go to language test results. So go down to the get your documents ready. And then if you go down to IELTS, it says you must take IELTS general training. We don't accept IELTS 1 skill retake for Express Entry. So it is right
There we
there
go.
in black and white. You cannot use that. You have to actually go and get a fully new IELTS general test. And I literally had somebody come to me on a consult who their consultant had used the 1 skill retake, and it made their entire profile ineligible, and they didn't know. And then they had to end up declining an ITA.
All right, Alex says, hey, Mark and Alicia, I have the same question as the previous one. I think this was about, can an employer get an LMIA for an existing employee? I think that's what this was about. But in my case, is it viable to get an LMIA exempt for them to work for 3 years? So this is an LMIA exemption. Well, like that was the nature of my whole presentation that I did last week. We're talking about things like the Francophone Mobilité program and things like that. And, any of those things are possible if you meet the requirements. There's no restrictions per se.
Yeah, so Alex, I always take a look with employers to see whether they have a possibility of applying under the IMP, the International Mobility Program. And so keep in mind, Mark and I did a whole podcast series on the differences between the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, which is one big bucket, and then the International Mobility Program, which is the other big bucket. Under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, you have to have an LMIA, and it's employer specific. Under the IMP, sometimes there's open work permits, like PGWPs are under the IMP, and there's also closed employer-specific work permits under IMP, like Mobilité Francophone, like the intercompany transfers, like free trade agreements when you're looking at other countries, Canada, Chile, Peru, South Korea, there's a whole bunch, the CPTPP. So there's a whole bunch of free trade agreements, and if you can fit within one of the employer-specific types of work permits that require an employer portal offer, then that is great because it means there's no labor market test because it's in a different section of our legislation. And Canada recognizes that there are reciprocal benefits to being able to have free trade agreements with other countries because then Canadians also have the ability to work in those countries. And so there doesn't need to be a labor market test as long as you meet the elements of whatever particular program you're looking at under that employer specific IMP work permit.
You bet. I just went quickly to just the Apple podcast, but you can listen on Spotify. I was shocked how many lawyers told me, Alicia, when I was there, they'd listen to our podcast. And because, we both were away over the summer, they thought, maybe they are not doing it anymore. And so it's time, and it's fair, people, they get accustomed to it. I see Steven is really ramped up. I know why he's ramped up, because he's got some pretty smoking sponsors. And so he has an obligation to generate content as a part of those sponsorships, I'm sure. But we don't have that. We are just generating stuff to help people and things that is of interest. But if you go all the way back to February of 2023, that's when we started our business immigration series, How to Hire a Foreign Worker. And each of these ones that's entitled Business Immigration, it literally walks through all of these different categories. Does your employee need a work permit? How to avoid the need for an LMIA? That's the whole IMP world, where most companies go wrong. Top 4 reasons that LMIAs get refused. And then we literally switch and transition into, okay, it's approved. Now what? What do you do with the work permit? And then you can see this really is the government's announcing things. We're doing this. Employer compliance, supporting a foreign worker for permanent residence. Now, this is definitely going to be outdated. This one, 2023. RNIP, Canada's tech talent strategy. Oh yeah, the H-1B work permits, right? So all of these are all a part of the whole process. So go check this out. Go back and binge all those episodes because it'll help you to understand professionals, intercompany transfers, traders and investors, the recognized employer pilot, all of these things, C10, significant benefit, GATS, Chile, all these kinds of things. So go take a look at that. And yes, we did just a week or so ago finally get the spousal sponsorship work permit options for spouses and kids released. And so, but the problem is I've been traveling and Alicia's been away, and we're now in a situation where we're kind of getting ourselves settled back in. But we have a lot of client work that we're trying to get through too. So it's a balance. But we were going to do it this morning, but when I basically flew back from Toronto last night, caught the plane at about 11 or so p.m. Eastern time, flew back, got into Alberta at 1:30, almost 2 Mountain time, and then I had a 2-hour drive home. So I rolled in about 4 a.m., slept till about 9:30 as long as I possibly could, and so we usually try to record an episode Wednesday mornings, but I think we're just going to need to get in there and just binge a bunch, Alicia, and block off half day to binge a whole bunch of episodes. But we like to do it as current, and have the episodes as really addressing the most current immigration issues that are at play. So that's why we don't usually binge or not binge, but just kind of record a whole bunch well in advance, because they're not always that evergreen in immigration. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Just give me a second. Syed says, just joined. See, you guys are having a good time. Can I ask anything about ONP? Do you think the ONP PhD stream will continue? I just don't know. One thing we know is when it comes to levels plans and what's going to be announced, I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to be doing something for academics, because right now professors at universities just don't have a pathway to permanent residence in most places, and they will absolutely do something for the executives. Now, what it's going to look like, I don't know. If they're just going to go IMPs or like double O knocks. And then, of course, everybody's going to be working in a 00 knock, Alicia, that's how it works. Once, and they acknowledge that. The government said, the moment actually, I talked with an awesome officer from the New Brunswick PNP, just a great, great guy. And he had a lot of really good insight. He talked about the challenges of occupation-based selection, because once they announce a knock, then everybody's submitting through that knock, whether they qualify or not. And fraud is a huge, huge issue. And he talked about the problems within fraud and immigration representatives as well. And so it's just something they wrestle with. Chong says, member of the masterclass, great resource. Hey, I'm so glad. We're going to be doing another masterclass right away here. So I look forward to seeing you again, Joanna. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, I think I covered all of those, which is good. And we are kind of into overtime right now. I know there's a lot of people that have posted a lot of questions. Like I said, probably on Friday, I'm going to be going live and talking a little bit about scary stories and maybe within the next couple of days as well, we're probably going to be talking about the annual levels plans for 2026 through 2028, because they have to announce those before. I guess they can. Can they release it on November 1st? I can't remember, or if
Yeah,
it's
on or
or if
before.
it's the
Yeah.
day before, on or before. So we'll see how all of that plays out. I know that a lot of you have posted, like I said, a lot of you have posted a lot of comments and questions, and looks like we've got a viewer from Poland here. So we'll give them a little shout out. Great to have you joining us. Um, uh, Duck Sheet says, did they mention anything about continuing education? Didn't say anything about it. So no word on the education draws. Let's see. Okay, well, Seb says, if we retain your services, we determine the best pathway for us. Well, absolutely. That's what we do, Seb. And the reality is, when it comes to identifying options, one of the things that we do as well is we tell you when you don't really have options. One of the most important things is to understand really where you sit, so that you can then make real, like, productive and useful decisions in what you're going to do with your life. So,
And this is the reason why we have paid consultations. Because Seb, if you book a paid consultation and Mark or Igor or I tell you, we don't think you should continue with this application, or we don't think that you have a viable pathway here, or basically you risk misrepresentation if you continue with this application that you've already submitted, then that'll be our honest answer. And I literally will not take an application if somebody is in a situation where I think that there is a significant risk that they will be found to have misrepresented with a 5-year bar. It's just, you can't pay me to help you do
nope,
that, right?
nope.
And so we won't take on files after a consultation if our honest assessment is that's not what you ought to be doing. You're always welcome to make your own choice, but we won't help you do it. And so this is why we have a paid consultation. And then only after the paid consultation, if you want to retain us and we figure out that it's a good fit, then that's how we proceed.
You bet. I was just looking here, Alicia. There's another one that already slid in for you again here. The consultation with Alicia was an excellent experience. They exceeded our expectations. And this was JKJ, I think. Yeah. The required questionnaire submitted in advance helped to focus our discussion. This is the consult. So we always send you guys a questionnaire to get the essential information we need, so that we can actually use every ounce of that time and not waste it. So we come prepared. And to efficiently get the most value for our time, you bet, Ms. Backman. Harry was delightful, kind, respectful, and looking out for our best interests. The information gained was invaluable and exactly what we need to make our decisions. That pretty much sums it. That's a great response. So thank you so much. Yeah. So that's awesome. So good. All right. Okay, my friends, I think we're have to wrap this one up. Indy says, thank you for all the information. I will check out the masterclass. Absolutely. And those of you who are wondering, in the description of these live streams, whether you're watching it on LinkedIn or YouTube or X or whatever the platform, Facebook, there's a link that will take you right to the Express Entry Accelerator, literally right to this page. And then all you need to do is click on the link, enroll now, subscribe. You get access to the full course, all of the individual lessons. There's literally over 70 individual lessons that cover every aspect of the Express Entry process. And if I was to identify one section that, for me, I love the most, it's the Mastering Your Document section, where we talk about every single document, what you need. There are checklists, there are templates, there are sample documents. There's everything that you need in here to get this right. And boy, this is just, I thought Express Entry was tough before, Alicia, but with what I'm seeing now from immigration and how they are just looking for every possible avenue to refuse applications, you guys may only get one shot at this, and you absolutely do not want to take a chance. You just don't. So, all right. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We missed Igor, but he's slaving away for our clients, and Alicia and I have got a very full day waiting for us as well. But thanks so much for joining. Stay tuned. We will have a special episode on the annual levels plans as they're released. And we will also probably on Friday evening, I'll do a little scary stories one while I'm sitting handing out candy to the kids. So we'll see what my costume is. I'm not sure what it's going to be. But last year, my immigration scary stories was, Yeah, I'll show you guys before let's see here. Let's see if I can find one here. There it is. Horrors of Canada Immigration. See, this is a pretty cool one. And then the Halloween Express Entry Horrors, real cases that went terribly wrong and how to avoid them. So that's this one right here. So there you go. Oh yeah, Alicia and I and Cedric and everybody were in this one. Okay, yeah, that's fun. It's been kind of like an annual affair that we've done here. So, all right. Okay, guys, thanks so much.